Dear friends, this is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our discussions and our journeys with respect to the works that can be found in this really splendid set, which is right here, which is known as Pioneers of African American Cinema. This happens to be the 5-disc Blu-ray set, which was released by Kino Classics some years back. And as some of you may know, we have on this channel been going through each of the works that's included in this set. And it's been my great honor and privilege to be able to talk a little bit about each of these works and also to learn from you and also learn from the set and the essays and also the bibliography, which leads to other sources of discussion and also exploration and research, etc., as well as a lot of the great or all of the great supplements that can be included or found to be included in this wonderful set. And so we have been discussing in this context each of the works here. That brings us to the 5th and final disc included in the Blu-ray version. And so the first film on such 5th disc is the work from 1939, and this is from Richard C. Kahn. It is the Western film, which is called The Bronze Buckaroo. And among its cast members are Herb Jeffries, also Lucius Brooks and Artie Young and Spencer Williams and others. Now, as I mentioned, this is a Western film, and it is a very efficient, engaging, entertaining work. The running time is approximately 58 minutes, so it's just shy of 1 hour, and there's a lot packed in it, and I think it forms a really fun time in terms of the story. And we have Bob Blake, the hero of the piece, the Herb Jeffries character, and his companions, included in which is the Lucius Brooks character of Dusty and others. And here they are traveling out west in a group and trying to answer the call of a particular landowner who seems to have suddenly gone missing. And they have the sister of this particular person who's gone missing to try to provide some kind of clues or insight as to the whereabouts of this particular person. So therein lies the kernel of the plot that is propelled forward in a number of various directions, as I say, in the context of this really entertaining Western. So one of those directions is the actual plot device itself of why this person has gone missing, what has happened to this person. And this leads to some interactions with the town folk, in particular, certain, say, sinister villains or a group of villains that included in which are a really memorable character portrayed by Spencer Williams in this wonderful, very physical role that also has a sense of menace, kind of towering sense of menace, and that's due in primary part to the real wonderful way in which the screen presence of Spencer Williams is presented in this film. Those scenes are really, they're filled with comedy. They're also filled with sudden flashes of violence and shock. And I mention also comedy too, because we also have film in another avenue of the way in which this film is engaging, I would suggest. We also have interspersed or embedded or combined with those scenes of, say, violence and also action. And there's a lot of action here. There's a lot of gunfights and a lot of fisticuffs and barroom brawls and that sort of thing. And there's also the musical interludes, song and dance, and wonderful shows of a type of dance routines and people having a wonderful time. But amongst those elements too, we also have moments of humor and comedy as well. And I think that's provided in large part by the character of Dusty. And this is the Lucius Brooks character and one of the companions of the main hero, Bob Blake. And so we have this, one of the things that's, I think, often commented on when people speak about this film is the way in which this film engages in the subplot involving the ventriloquism and the talking animals, in particular the talking mule, and that little aside, which turns into a really interesting subplot, and again provides, I think, a lot of what could be interpreted to be a lot of the humorous aspects of the film as well, at least from a certain point of view anyway. And so all of these combine, I think, to provide a very engaging and entertaining time at the movies with regard to this Western film and this Western genre, with heroes and villains and romance in the air, as well as sidekicks and barroom brawls and musical interludes and the like. And we have a type of showdown of sorts that also is, I think, come to be expected in this type of entertaining spectacle that is the Western genre, in the form of this film, The Bronze Buckaroo. So in that way, I think we have a wonderful example, and something that it's wonderful to have included in this particular set, because among other things, it is a very entertaining work. Now, one of the things I think we can also keep in mind, which is also referred to in the essay by Jacqueline Najumar Stewart, which is included as part of the writings in this wonderful booklet that's included with the Blu-ray set here, is its context in the context and its say relation vis-a-vis this particular set and this particular curated series of films. Now, on the one hand, it could be said that, or it could, I think, in terms of its plot, directly speaking, it could be said that there aren't necessarily any direct types of discussions to be had specifically in the plot structure of the film with regard to, say, the contemporary currency of social issues that involve race and race depictions and race relations per se. Now, what I mean by this is, directly speaking, there are no, say, characters within the world of the film that seem to be engaging in this type of dynamic or discussion. For example, or to put it another way, the characters, or this is one of the points of this film that's remarked upon in the marketing materials and also in terms of contemporary scholarship, is that this is a cast of African American performers and actors, and so within that there are no story dynamics or characters that are directly involved in the space of the film, in terms of direct engagement or direct discussion of say, race relations, and as Charles Musser points out in the essay, in the first essay in the booklet, any direct discussions of the color line per se in the world of the film. So there, arguably speaking, the film doesn't necessarily engage in that. However, another way to interpret the film is, in fact, that it indeed engages in that type of discussion or dynamic, while not necessarily spoken by the characters in the world of the film. Arguably speaking, that type of dynamic could still be said to be there. And I think I want to draw one's attention to, as I say, the essay here, which is called Race Movies, A Patchwork History. This is by Jacqueline Najumar Stewart. And on page 33 of this booklet with the Kino Classics release, at the bottom of said page, or the first full paragraph of said page, this is where Jacqueline Najumar Stewart talks about the film The Bronze Buckaroo. And one of the things she points out is the dynamic between Herb Jeffries and Lucius Brooks. And this is Bob Blake and also Dusty. And so this is the duo, the companionship, the hero companionship, the main hero plus his companion, his sidekick, as it were. And so what Jacqueline Najumar Stewart points out is, she makes a very interesting point about what she calls skin color hierarchies within the Black community, end quote. And what she seems to be referring to here, again, please, I strongly suggest that you check the essay, because it's a really brilliant essay, well written, and this is, I think, a really interesting key point that she raises, which is the idea that Herb Jeffries is a light-skinned, he has light skin complexion, whereas Dusty, the Lucius Brooks character, Dusty, has a dark skin complexion. And so while there are, say, certain maybe ways to interpret the film, such as there aren't any direct engagements or discussions by the characters in the world of the film with respect to race or racial relations, it seems that this idea of skin complexion can also be brought up. In other words, the idea of the hierarchies, which Jacqueline Jumor Stewart here mentions, is, and I quote, Herb Jeffries is an extremely light-skinned actor who stands in stark visual and verbal contrast with Lucius Brooks, a dark-skinned actor who uses somewhat comic speech. And this comic speech might be seen to be, from a certain viewpoint, somewhat derogatorily depicted in the rendering of Dusty, compared to Jeffries' proper, if slightly twangy, pronunciations. This, alongside Dusty's fearfulness and gullibility, he is tricked into buying a talking mule, evokes skin color hierarchies within the black community, as they are often mapped onto class and educational distinctions, end quote. And this is the bottom of page 33 into the top of page 34. And then she goes on to say on page 34, Brooks's portrayal of Dusty also invokes the long and complex legacy of minstrelsy as it infuses black entertainment culture. And then to continue on, as Dusty, Lucius Brooks in The Bronze Buckaroo presents another instance of a black film performer not simply imitating a familiar white figure, here the comic Western sidekick, but bringing a long black performative tradition to bear on his screen role with the virtuosity and the baggage of stereotype that this tradition entails, end quote. And again, that can be found on page 34 of the booklet, Jacqueline Juma Stewart's essay. So this, I think, brings a lot of consideration and potential discussion with regard to that particular dynamic. Again, it's not spoken on screen directly per se, but I think especially with the guidance and observations of Professor Stewart, we have this potential topic or issue that is, I think, embedded within the any kind of reading of this film, contemporary or otherwise. And so I think that's really important point to bring up. Although I would say, too, that there is an interesting way in which the character of Dusty is portrayed in the film. Arguably, yes, there is a very type of comic element to a lot of his scenes, and those comic scenes could also, from a certain point of view, be seen as being somewhat derogatory. In other words, they are putting him down, or they are making him look buffoonish or idiotic. And I think the example that's raised is he is tricked into buying the quote-unquote talking mule. Also, however, there are other scenes which, while he might be seen to be buffoonish, there are also scenes where he is those scenes of somewhat comic nature are turned into either points of villainy. There's a scene involving smoking and Spencer Williams, and it could be seen as somewhat buffoonish, but also that scene also shows the level of villainy of the Spencer Williams character. That's a scene that takes place in the bar. That's one example. Another example, too, and I don't want to get into too much plot details, but towards the end, there is a type of arguably very heroic turn that the Dusty character does be involved in. It's a very, very significant aspect of the plot in terms of his own heroic acts. And so that is something to keep in mind too, is that Dusty is also seen in a lot of ways within this film to be a very heroic figure. And also taking the point about the whole idea about how Dusty might have been seen to be made a fool of because he fell for the trick of buying the talking mule. This plot, again, I don't want to go into too many details here, again, for those who haven't seen the film, but just to be very general as possible, it could also be said that this plot line could be seen to have resolved in Dusty's favor. And this, again, you have to watch the end of the film to maybe see how this plot line gets resolved, of course. But I think the idea is that he could be seen to have maybe come out on top in the end, as it were. So he's not always, I would suggest, depicted in a solely maybe derogatory light, although I can see how this point is, I think, a very important one to keep in mind. And again, this type of discussion is very, very important in terms of this type of what is referred to as the idea of this of skin complexion and how this is portrayed and what kinds of characters are being portrayed within the context of the plot and how those dynamics are very important. And indeed, we saw those dynamics of skin complexion being portrayed in very direct terms in the hands of, say, other filmmakers like Oscar Micheaux and others. And those had, I think, a very direct involvement in terms of the world of the film and race relations vis-a-vis the characters that were depicted in the film. And so this is something that can either be spoken of directly in the film, or it can be something that, while not necessarily spoken of in the film, can be still very much significant. And I think Jacqueline Njuma Stewart's point here, brought up in the context of the latter, is a really important point to keep in mind. And so, again, very, very important, room for discussion, and it's, I think, a type of point that makes one realize that a film like The Bronze Buckaroo might be having certain readings that maybe go outside of the film's plot itself. And then when we go or return to the film, we still see these types of entertaining, engaging aspects that I think give one room for further discussions in terms of a social and political and economic economic context vis-a-vis race and race relations and depictions and representations going forward. So this is very, very important, very fascinating, and also very much part of the conversation for this and other films within this set. So it's a film that I think, to maybe wrap up this conversation, it's a film that I think has a lot of great potential for these particular conversations, as well as providing a wonderful example of this this entertaining, engaging Western film, which has a really fun characters and also very villainous characters. It's very easy to follow. It's compact, and it's, as I say, a really good time at the movies, while also providing yet further context vis-a-vis its place in this particular curated set, Pioneers of African American Cinema. So we have a lot, I think, to consider. And I am in no way an expert when it comes to this or other films here, but I do see that it is a film that has so much in terms of its readings and potentials and interpretations, and operating on many levels. That is the film, which is from 1939, The Bronze Buckaroo. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so what do you think about this film? Have you seen it? If so, please let me know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, I encourage you to check out the booklet. Also, check out the wonderful bibliography that is also included, or the suggested reading list that's also included in this particular booklet. This will provide more insightful commentary and places to go and research paths than anything that I could ever hope to possibly even begin to consider to provide. Again, I am in no way an expert. I am trying to watch these films and to learn and to have my own cinema journey as well. And so this is something that is a really great jumping off point in terms of other places to go, other sources to consider, other academics to read, and the like. So I strongly encourage you to check out the essays here, as well as the suggested reading list, which the academics have also prepared here. So it's a wonderful resource and a really great place for anyone who might be interested in a further cinematic journey in Pioneers of African American Cinema. So with that, my friends, thank you very much. And until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.